So when we're talking, this is more about how much money should you keep in your bank account when you're launching your offer, but also when you're trying to scale your offer and then sustain your offer. So, kind of rule of thumb is that if you're running a high ticket offer, I really like to see that you have at least, and again, it depends on how much you want to grow. I'm a big believer that you should start a little bit smaller. Don't get wrapped up in the let's get money quickly. Those people in our industry were never able to sustain themselves. I promise you, I don't care what you see on Instagram. I've seen numbers for 20 years now, 20 plus years. So I know who kind of lived a very glamorous life and had no money in their bank accounts to the ones that scaled properly. They were a little bit of like the turtle and the hare, right? They did it slower, but they ended up winning the race, winning the race, and they still are winning today. So I'm a big believer that when you launch a high ticket offer, you need to tweak it a little bit. You need to see what your feedback is, and this is during the initial part, right? See, are people doing chargebacks? Are people doing refunds? Are there things you need to tweak a little bit? Because the worst thing that could happen is that month one, all of a sudden you get two chargebacks, let's say, come in and they're high ticket, they're 5K to 7K each, let's just say. And the bank or the processor looks at you and says, hey, Patricia, I need you to get, or the agent, whoever it is, I need to see their current bank account statement. You have zero money in your account. I can tell you this, if you were that same person, you would all of a sudden have your red flag up and going, we're not going to let them scale. We don't even know if we want to keep this account. So rule of thumb for me, at least, is if you're running a high ticket offer, I want to see if that high ticket offer is $5,000 to $10,000. I want to see that you at least have $50,000 in your bank account. If you don't have that, then you should at least have it, and it should be in your business account. If you don't have that, then you need to show us your personal bank account to show us that you have money, because a high ticket offer, you have to be able to cover your exposure. If you get chargebacks, you do not want your merchant account going into collections. That's the worst thing that could happen, because you'll end up getting eventually TMF'd. You won't be able to use your name. You won't be able to use your business name. All the information about you'll basically have to go get a signer. So you'll be calling up your mom asking her to please go on your merchant account, or your wife, or whoever it is. So in order to avoid that, you want to be able to have, again, whether it's if you're running a $2,500 offer, have at least, $25,000 in your bank account. Credit score, I'm not too big on credit scores. Like if you have, in the fours, I don't even know if that's possible. That you at least, again, you need to build a good summary. Why is it in the fours? There's a lot of times, a lot of explanations for things too. So we've worked with people who have had bankruptcies, right? Most people wouldn't be able to do that. But if you're able to show, hey, this person went through a really bad divorce, their spouse was putting, and I've had that, they were putting their name on credit cards and stuff, and that's what caused it. If there's explanations and we know that that person is actually a good business owner and operator, you could get more volume, and you could scale properly. So as you're scaling, one of the biggest mistakes I've ever seen, or I constantly see, and this is if they're not working with me, because if you're working with me, you're going to get all this education beforehand. So, you have a smooth run, right? But one of the bigger things is all of a sudden you're scaling and you need to get more volume. You send me your bank statements, your business bank statements, and you have $5,000 in it, but you want an extra $200,000 line of credit. Think about it logically. You wouldn't do it. I'm not going to do it. It's not a good bet, right? So try to keep as much money in your business as possible. And again, if you're going to run a business, before you go out and go get signers and do all this other stuff, go get a business loan, put that money in your business bank account, and keep it in there. Make sure you're not taking that money to pay for marketing. Marketing spend is fine. People know it's logical to be able to say, hey, I use 50% or more of the money I'm making and putting it back into the business. That is totally a logical explanation. But just make sure that you're looking, always put yourself in the processor's shoes and say, what would I feel comfortable with? If I know for a fact that I'm going to scale this thing to do 500,000 or $1 million in the next 2 months, then you should have a few $100,000 in that bank account. If you don't, and you say it's absolutely impossible to do that, that's okay as well. But then I would say throttle back. My advice to you, you could do whatever you want, would be to throttle back a little bit until you get some of that cushion and have some of that money. because that is the proper way to scale an offer. And it's going to give you, regardless of what and even, I mean, even if you talk to your marketing company, we work with some of the best marketing companies in the world. Your marketing company will even tell you that. They'll say, let's refine it, let's tune it, because at the end of the day, we're basically all spokes in a wheel, right? If your merchant account gets in trouble, your marketing agency is directly impacted. And if you talk to marketing companies, they'll tell you how many times all of a sudden they were not able to collect on their next bill for that particular person because their merchant account got closed, or their merchant account couldn't scale, or something else catastrophic happened. So you really need to work and understand and work with the best of the best to understand that you're now fitting into this scope, or into these spokes of a wheel, and that wheel has to run perfectly. So if you're working with a closing company, a high ticket sales team, if you don't have a marketing company that is able to run your offer because you can't process transactions properly or scale, everything literally falls apart. It's the analogy, the flat tire. I mean, you literally have a flat tire, you can't do it. And then it becomes where everyone has to kind of clean up the mess, and then you're trying to catch up. So from day one, there's a proper way to do it. Fund your business, make sure you have money in that account. Make sure you're not putting yourself obviously into incredible debt to get funded. But really think of yourself, if you want to run, if you're just out there, and again, there's a lot of people out there do it. I work with them. There's a lot of drop shipping companies. There's a lot of different kinds of offers where it is churn and burn. They already know they're going to stay alive for 3 months. They're going to make a killing. They have huge profit margins. And they already know that they're going to get their merchant accounts closed. Doesn't mean that I don't work with them. It's about setting expectations of what to expect. So you could tell me, Patricia, when we're working together, hey, I already know I'm going to be super, super aggressive. This is what's going to happen. I know how to present it then, and I know how to make sure to get it to a place where you're going to be able to do what you want to do, right? You cannot be completely negligent. That's not going to happen. That's not going to fare well, because, someone like me, at least, I know there's other ones out there that will, I'm not going to do that to my reputation. But if you're here to build a really good business, and where you want to sustain it from now until the next, 5 years, 10 years, when you want to cash out or move it into another business, or have 10 different other offers and companies going, then do things the right way day one. There's so much more to get into high risk. The right way to do things, at the end of the day, it comes down to making sure you're working with the right teams that not just provide merchant accounts, that not, just like you pick out the best marketing agency, you pick out the best, teams, the best closing teams, you pick out all these best people. And the one thing that I think has a lot less priority, which is crazy to me, is the actual merchant processing. I lose deals to people because they'll say, well, I got this offer from this guy or girl, and they're only charging me X amount. And I'm going, yeah, that's less than a retail coffee shop. So what do you think happens? And I'm going to leave you with this. So if you're the lowest price merchant with the most noise and causing the most trouble, the most chargebacks, the most refunds, you want the most volume, and you're paying less than a coffee shop across the street, who do you think, when that processor's portfolio starts to creep up in chargebacks, which that's what happens, they have to also maintain ratios for their sponsor bank, who do you think is going to get closed first? Do you think it's going to be the coffee shop, or do you think it's going to be you? So I'm not saying that you have to get price gouged. I'm not saying that you have to pay exorbitant fees, but I will tell you this, you're in a lot better position when the processor's getting fed and they feel safe that if all of a sudden something happens to your account and you start getting more refunds and chargebacks, I can tell you right now that you will not be the first one to get closed. I know that for a fact. Like I said, I've been on all ends of the merchant processing spectrum, and there is a place to also improve. Like, just like anything else, let's start out with a little bit of a higher rate. Don't worry about it. Prove yourself. And that makes it so much easier to go in and say, listen, they should be rewarded. They're doing really well. They run a really solid ship. Let's reduce their rate. So again, I hope all this helped. I can talk about high risk. Like I said, it's all I've done my whole life. I could talk in and out, love to have conversations with everybody. I really hope at the end of the day that this has provided value to you, because, it helps all of us, even if we're not working together. A good industry across the board and good verticals helps everybody that's in the business. So if all of a sudden, just like nutraceuticals, when nutraceuticals gets a bad rap, it funnels across all the processors, all the banks start pulling out of it. The same thing happens with high ticket offers. High ticket offers already went through that in 2011 where nobody wanted to touch it. So we're in this kind of weird space right now again, where people are getting a little bit wild and they're really doing aggressive offers. It's not going to last. I promise you, it is not going to last. It will happen again. There's rumblings of it already. So why don't you make sure that you're set up to be the person that when the chips fall, you're still the one standing. So I hope to talk to each and every one of you soon. Like I said, go ahead and book a call with me. We do have fractional chief payments officer solutions where we come in specifically for high risk. Doesn't matter who you're working with on the merchant processing side, but hopefully that person will be me and my team. Until then, keep growing, keep scaling, and do it safely. And I hope that we're going to work together in the future.